Hello, and welcome to the College Board Search webinar, Key Facts and Figures about the December 7th PSAT and MSQT data load. We will be recording today's session and will email you after the webinar along with the slide deck and some additional information. Thanks so much for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Carolyn Knowles-Sorg. I've been part of the search team at College Board for 3 years, and I came from higher ed enrollment management. I actually started my career in student affairs at a liberal arts college in New York, but I quickly found my home in admissions, where I spent 10 years at a large public university and 2 smaller private colleges, all in Ohio. Among other things, I was responsible for search in the enrollment management leadership role I held before coming to College Board.
And my name is Mark Barrett. I've been with the College Board for about 5.5 years. And over the past 3, I've been focused exclusively on helping institutions with search and with their search strategy. Prior to College Board, I spent about 15 years in admissions and enrollment management at several different private institutions in both the Midwest and the Northeast. Happy to be with you today to share some of this important information and help you with your search efforts.
Let's take a quick look at our agenda for today. We're going to begin with College Board updates. From there, we'll jump into discussion of the PSAT data load that's coming up on Monday. And as you'll learn in that part of our conversation, the way search works is fundamentally changing. So it's important for us to then turn to the bigger picture of search, specifically when and how students enter the database. After that, we'll share specific tactics you can use to find all the students you need in search. We'll wrap up by previewing 3 upcoming webinars in the month of December and take your questions. The Q&A and chat boxes are open. You can use either to send us your questions, and we'll address as many as we can during and following our presentation. If we can't get to your questions today, we'll be sure to follow up with you individually after today's session. And another quick reminder, if you're just joining us, that we will provide today's slide deck and a recording to all participants.
Since March, the College Board has been listening to our members to understand how they've been affected by the pandemic. In response to what we've been hearing from our members, we've gathered more than 25 strategic focus groups and nearly 1,000 one-to-one conversations with higher ed leaders. We've also provided an integrated series of issue briefs, updates, best practice webinars, and research-driven guidance. Through more than 100 webinars, we've engaged over 11,000 higher education professionals from at least 778 higher ed institutions. In addition, we created a special higher ed COVID web resource, a new COVID enrollment brief series, and more than 25 strategic guides for higher education. We've sought and received ongoing feedback and input from our higher ed members regarding these events, and to date, 94% of webinar participants have rated these sessions as valuable or very valuable. Participants also told us that these webinars have impacted all aspects of work of enrollment offices, most commonly recruitment and admissions policy. As always, you can learn more and access resources for higher ed at cb.org/HECOVID-19.
So let's turn our attention to the PSAT data load. We'll begin with a discussion of logistics. As a result of COVID-19, we have expanded PSAT and MSQT testing opportunities for students and split what is traditionally an early January data load into 2. The first data load for PSAT testing that occurred in October will be this Monday, December 7th. The second for the January 2021 testing will be on Monday, March 15th. On December 7th, the College Board Search platform will contain live counts beginning just after midnight, and we'll begin processing orders at 1 a.m. Order fulfillment times will be extended from 1 a.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Time on the 7th. We want to emphasize for those of you who may be contemplating working night shifts Sunday into Monday that we cannot guarantee orders will be processed instantly. When you submit multiple orders, those orders need to deduplicate against all prior orders, which lengthens our processing time. We prioritize accuracy over speed. Our fulfillment will return to normal hours on Tuesday, the 8th. When you submit a search order, it goes into a queue with all other submitted orders from all other search users. Orders are then fulfilled in the order in which they were received. If you use standing orders, we fulfill those for you first. On a typical day like today, our average runtime for an order of 2,000 names is about 1 minute and 15 seconds. But of course, fulfillment times can vary considerably on a day when larger orders and many of them are being submitted. We know some of you work overnight with the goal of being quote unquote first in mailbox, so we want to be transparent about these processes and alert you to potentially longer processing times.
On the next few slides, we're going to get into some of the PSAT and MSQT data load details. And we know you're interested in seeing a side-by-side comparison to the 2019 PSAT, which was loaded in January of this year. But this is a different year because of the pandemic, and College Board has made changes to the way we load student data into the search database, which we'll talk more about here in a few minutes. So we can see that in January 2020, there were 2.3 million students in total in the PSAT and MSQT data load, which compares to about 890,000 that will be loaded on Monday. It would be an injustice to the changes that College Board Search has made this year, however, to simply compare these numbers without additional details, because the story is much more compelling than simply these high-level numbers. With that said, we're also going to talk today about the total names available by cohort, which has been building strongly this year, especially in the past few months. So keep in mind, there will be an additional administration of the PSAT and MSQT in late January, which will be available in the database in March of 2021. On the next slide, we'll put some of the search search names from the PSAT into context for you. When we look at only new students in the database, which is what most people are interested in, we see that in January of 2020, the total was about 854,000. And you can see a breakdown of the number of new students here by class. Looking to Monday's data load, there's going to be about 424,000 students with the PSAT test that will become available. And you can see that for the junior class, that equals about 136,000 students, and for sophomores, about 257,000. Of course, as I mentioned, more students will be entering the database in March, and between now and then, additional students will opt into search across these cohorts. So while you may be thinking about fewer test takers when looking at these numbers in isolation, the number of new names is strong overall when you take all the new names into account over the past several months, which we're going to show you in the next few slides. So, and at this point, we do anticipate that the January PSAT will have a higher percentage of test takers from the sophomore class than the October administration. Okay, so we shared some high-level PSAT data load information, and you may all be wondering, what does this mean when compared to the total volume of names available? Here's where the data becomes really interesting. First, we've highlighted the classes of 2022 and 2023 on this slide because most of you are interested in this data load because of that sophomore and junior volume. In the first column of numbers, you can see that in January of 2020, we had just over 100,000 students available in the class of 2023. Since January, we've added names throughout the year, and on Monday, we expect there to be approximately 600,000 students available in this cohort. This is actually more students available in the sophomore cohort than we normally have this time of year. For the juniors, or the 2022 grads, we started the year with about 1.1 million students, and we expect that will grow to around 1.6 million on Monday. So when you look at the whole picture, search volume growth is actually looking strong, but the students are getting into search differently and more consistently on a week-to-week basis, which Carolyn will detail out for you here in a few minutes.
And here's another way to look at it. The chart compares the volume of each class year over year with the class before them. This is a point-in-time comparison of search volume by cohort as of December 7th, 2019 versus what we expect on December 7th, 2020. So on the left in light gray, we have the class of 2020 in their senior year at 2.44 million. Next to that, in the bar in the darker gray, we have the class of 2021 as seniors, roughly at 2.275 million as of Monday. And as you continue from left to right, you can see the point-in-time differences for this year's juniors, sophomores, and freshmen as of December 7th compared to the class before them 1 year ago. We have fewer juniors this year, but it's not a wide gap, and it will continue to grow. As Mark mentioned earlier, we have actually twice the number of sophomores available in early December compared to a year ago. And we've never had this many freshmen in search this early in the academic year. Here's the score distribution for October PSAT test takers. The bell curve shows that 72% of PSAT scores are clustered between 800 and 1190, with 9% below 800 and 18% at 1200 and above. If you're searching with score bands on your orders, it's important to understand that if you set your minimum and maximum scores anywhere in the widest part of the bell curve, that even a 10-point adjustment can make a big difference in the number of students you find. So for example, if you set your minimum score at 1,000, but you'd treat a 990 similarly in admission review, you could be cutting out thousands of students from your order that you're likely to admit. We'll talk about our score growth research later in the presentation as well to help you determine where to set your score bands for the PSAT test source.
As we've done for you in the past, we wanted to share some information with you on what majors students selected on their PSAT. And similar to what we've seen in recent years, the largest number of students from at the PSAT level are undecided, and many choose not to answer the question at all. So when you're searching, you should ask yourself, if a sophomore or junior in high school lives within your primary, secondary, tertiary market, do you really need to use a major when searching for them? You may be best to be inclusive of all majors and those who didn't answer the question, or perhaps a market-based strategy would be more effective for you, such as not using the major section in search at all in your primary or secondary markets, and using it selectively in tertiary markets as you need to reduce volume. Of course, we can help you with this strategy, and we'll be happy to set up a call with you to discuss further.
On this slide, we're showing the approximate number of students in the classes of 2021 to 2024 that we project will be available on Monday in each state. The shading shows the percent growth from the volume of students available today. The darker the color, the larger the cohort growth. And as you can see here, many states in the Midwest and upper Midwest will see 15% or more growth. And along the coast, we'll see the overall cohort sizes grow, but not as substantially. Now, keep in mind that there are already large numbers of students available in the historically SAT-leaning states along the coast and in contract states. These are places where students take College Board exams in high numbers. So the PSAT data load alone does not tell the whole story you need to understand. Many students in these states have been available for some time. Take Colorado, for example, which administers the PSAT 10, PSAT NMSQT, and the SAT statewide. The percent increase after the data load will be roughly 4%, even though year over year PSAT participation in Colorado was actually greater this year than last year. If you're searching in Colorado or other contract states, College Board Search is going to have a critical mass of the students you're looking to recruit and a larger population of qualified students than you can access anywhere else. Now, on the left, we have a list of the states that administer the PSAT through a state contract, as well as the class year or years when that testing occurs. And we're going to include the complete state and district partner list in the appendix of this slide deck for your reference.
So Carolyn and I are here today to talk to you about the PSAT and NMSQT data load, obviously. And on the next slide, Carolyn is going to show you how the database is working differently. But we encourage you not to think of Monday as a PSAT-only search time, even though that's what you normally do at a PSAT data release date. Instead, we hope that a critical takeaway for you today is that you need to begin searching across test sources consistently and for students in the database who don't have an assessment on file yet. And perhaps what's most critical is that you start searching more frequently and you treat search as a constant flow of students into the database. I'm going to hand it back to Carolyn so she can share some details with you on how search works.
Thanks, Mark. So the way search works has changed, and the way you work with search data needs to change too. This is a pretty big paradigm shift, especially for those of you like Mark and I who have been working with search for a long time. But for a moment, let's just forget everything we know about how search has worked before and talk about how search works now. A student can opt into search today more ways than ever before. They might opt in while researching college on Big Future and saving a college list. On collegeboard.org, they might choose to opt in when invited while creating their account, registering for a weekend SAT, checking assessment scores from PSAT, SAT, or AP, or even when linking their Khan Academy account to their College Board account to begin official SAT practice. Or they might continue to opt in a way that's familiar to all of us during the pre-administration session for an exam being given at school, like PSAT, PSAT 10, SAT school day, or AP exams. Now, regardless of how a student opts in, the student is added to the search database. From the top left, now look to the bottom left on this flow chart. In the case of online opt-in channels, students are added through a weekly process we call indexing. We add students to search now whether or not they have a prior assessment. When a student opts in for the first time during an exam, they'll be added to search during the data load for that exam. Moving along the bottom of the slide to the right, you can then license and connect with those students. When a student already has been added to search and they take an assessment, whether it's their first test or their fifth, those scores will be appended to their existing search record on the data load for that assessment. Now, keep in mind that many students opting in online do actually have College Board assessments associated with their record. So if you set your calendar by the PSAT data load in the past and ordered one time a year in January, you'd never find the PSAT test taker now who opts in online after the data load. So there are two big takeaways here. First, every student used to have an assessment on their search record, and that's no longer the case. And two, because that's no longer the case, your focus on data load as search events needs to change to a more consistent process. This will give you the opportunity to talk to students sooner when they first opt in and when they're paying the closest attention. And in the future, you won't hear from us all that much about data loads in the same way, but more about the flow of students into the search database.
In the past, you've become used to the PSAT and MSQT data coming into the database all at once, and in more recent years, of course, the PSAT 10 was added in the spring. But now that students are loaded into search at the time they opt in online or during an in-school assessment, you can expect that data to come in more consistently over time. So another way to look at how the class of 2022 has grown is on this slide, and this also shows how it will continue to grow. So let's just revisit this. In January of 2020, the 2019 PSAT and MSQT data was loaded, and 2022 students were sophomores at that time. By October, these students are juniors, of course, and College Board Search began adding all opt-ins without an assessment as long as they had opted into search. As you know, on December 7th, next Monday, the PSAT test takers from October will be added. And keep in mind, again, this is only the first wave of PSAT and MSQT data because we've added the additional January test. In the weeks after December 7th, because of indexing, you can expect that we will see additional volume of students being added to search because students are able to access their PSAT scores at the same time the data enters the search database. So, for example, if a student who didn't opt in goes back to check their PSAT score, they can opt in at that point, which means their data will become available in the week or weeks after December 7th. Our data is showing that approximately 200,000 students didn't answer the opt-in question on the October PSAT, so expect that a percentage of those will choose to opt in over time. So while a significant number of new names will be available on Monday, the takeaway here is that you'll be able to add more students over time. So searching often is going to be critical for you to find all the students you want. The second PSAT administration that I referenced, again, is in January of 2021, and those names officially become available on March 15th. So the bottom line is that you should search frequently. And in the past, we know you followed the data load dates, or at least a few of the more significant data load dates. Going forward, you should reset your thinking about the search database. Instead of thinking about specific data loads, think about the fact that students are added as soon as they opt in. So instead of a couple of specific dates next year, focus on searching every month. That will help you find new students in your primary, secondary, and tertiary markets. This will require a little bit of extra attention for you up front, but this can be managed with a little bit of help from us. Maybe you use a vendor who will be managing this for you. And if you have a good CRM system, you can quickly and easily reach out to these students. Finding a complete list of students going forward will require you to go bigger and broader than just a single exam score like the PSAT. And at a minimum, will require you to search more frequently. So we've said several times now how search has recently changed, and we wanted to share an analogy that we think helps you understand the former process compared to the new normal. Student data in search is more of a constant flow of new names into the database instead of a few tidal waves of new names. In the past, search names entered that database in a couple of really large waves, primarily from the PSAT and MSQT, AP, and then a series of smaller waves from SAT and PSAT 10. But since October of this year, we're seeing significant numbers of new students entering the search database week over week and month over month. So while you still have a few good-sized waves of new names, you can expect that month by month, the search population is going to grow, and that your search strategy, tactics, and outreach will need to adjust with it, or you risk falling behind your competitors. Now, when we say that data loads will mostly change the shape of existing records in search, what we mean is that many students will enter the database when they create a College Board account or they register for an assessment, meaning they may not have scores on file right away. When the data load occurs after test administration, test score criteria that can be used in search will be appended to the student record so you can use those data points in your search. And those of you on this call, we know you all may take different approaches to finding students with search working in this new way, but keep in mind that many campuses will still take a first in the mailbox approach, and they'll reach out to students as soon as possible when names are available. So you may want to think about that as you decide how to search going forward. For example, if you're test optional, should you really limit yourself to only recruiting students within a certain PSAT or SAT score range? Or if you're searching in one of your vital markets, are you best off finding those students right away when they enter the database, even if they don't have a score on file? So a few weeks back, Carolyn and I had a webinar where we shared a few observations about search behavior by institutions. One of the observations was that from August until mid-November, only about 47% of search users had used search to license names of juniors in the database, despite the fact that of all search users, 73% actually licensed the junior cohort this year. This indicates to us that most campuses picked up students in the junior class early in the year, probably from the PSAT, but did not continue picking them up in the fall, even when we were seeing large numbers of new names coming into the database. Most of you on this call will be adding these students next week, but the reality is that you could have been talking to a significant number of these students months ago as they entered the database. So again, as you think about how you'll change your search practices next year, we hope you'll keep our analogy in mind. Student data into search is now a constant flow of new names instead of a few really large waves of new names.
Aligning your communication plans to today's student opt-in behavior will be the best way for you to improve your search ROI. Available technology for delivering search communication has become amazingly sophisticated, allowing you to set up campaigns that are triggered based on when students make their names available and are licensed by you, rather than when you determine it's best to kick off a sophomore junior campaign. If this sounds daunting to you, using standing orders in College Board Search will make frequent ordering a piece of cake. When you create and then submit an order, you just choose standing order. You'll then be prompted to pick a start date, end date, and maximum volume. Your order will then run as the data loads and email you when new names are ready to download. When you build your orders, our best advice to catch students when they enter is to always search all cohorts and all test sources. Gone are the days of searching only PSAT on a certain date in January, because you never know when in the year that student will opt in. Keeping your order simple and managing fewer segments will help you keep all of this organized. Now, the example to the right in the purple box is a 5-month snapshot of how one school, we'll call them Sample College, might approach this new age of search. Sample College creates a simple order in December for cohorts 2022, 2023, and 2024. They add their geography for the primary market. They include all opt-in students and College Board exams. They add a GPA range as an academic qualifier. They submit that standing order, selecting the option for as the data loads. It runs on the next 2 data load dates, December 7th and January 5th. Each time, Sample College adds those students to their DRIP campaigns, effectively reaching the students right away. In February, there are no data loads scheduled, but Sample College has a junior visit day to promote. They copied their standing order once each week in the month of February to ensure they're getting their invitation out to every eligible junior in their primary market. These students will be deduplicated from future runs of the standing order, and this allows Sample College to scaffold between data load dates when they have something important to communicate. The order runs 2 more times in March and twice more in April. And in total, Sample College will have 10 runs of their order between December and April. They've been constantly adding new students to their communication when they are newly eligible and when they are paying the closest attention. This is effectively the new version of staying up all night, the night of the PSAT data load, to be first in inbox. Now you're constantly capturing these students when they become available.
So here's a quick case study for you. Sam took the PSAT in MSQT in October of 2020, but didn't opt into Search. December's here, and Sam logs in to check his scores around December 10th, and he sees that he got an 1140, and he opts in at that time. Fast forward a few months to April, Sam has now completed the March SAT, and he scored a 1220. Meanwhile, back on December 7th, Sample College is ready to go on their searches, and they license students in the class of 2022 and 2023 in the market where Sam lives, and they use a PSAT score range of 1040 and higher. They revisit the search database next spring, and they search for 2022 and 2023 students with SAT scores of 1100 plus. So the question for you guys is, will they find Sam? The answer is they will not, because Sam didn't opt into Search until December 10th, and their PSAT orders were placed a few days before Sam opted in. They will not find him. In March, they searched for SAT test takers, and while Sam is opted in at this point, Sample College missed him because they only looked for SAT scores, which Sam didn't have available until April. So what could Sample College have done differently? For one, they could have included PSAT searches in their March orders, but better yet, they could have set up standing orders, and they would have picked up Sam in early January and would have been having a conversation with him for several months. The point here is that when searching, being too narrow with scores, timing, or filters will cause you to miss students that you likely want to be recruiting.
So what does this all mean for the way you do your work in Search? We're going to turn last to recommended tactics to help you succeed given the changes we've discussed.
If you've attended a College Board webinar in the past, it's very likely you've seen this slide. For years, we've recommended that you search for PSAT test takers with a slightly lower score band than you would use with the SAT. That's based on a 2017 study on the effects of official SAT practice on score growth. If you're not familiar with official SAT practice, it's a free, customized, high-quality program in partnership with Khan Academy, which allows students to link their College Board and Khan Academy accounts and receive customized practice based on their individual PSAT performance. This 2017 study found that students who practiced even for modest amounts of time increased their scores from PSAT to SAT. The gray column on this chart showed that in the class of 2017, those students who reported no practice at all still achieved an average 60-point score gain. So while this study tells a story about the impact of official SAT practice, it also provides a takeaway for Search users and to build affinity earlier with the students you will ultimately be recruiting with your SAT searches, and to reach them closer to their point of opt-in when response rates are higher. You need to lower your PSAT score band to anticipate for score growth. And keep in mind that when searching for sophomores, you may want to lower your PSAT score ranges a few points below what you use for juniors, given that sophomores have more time to improve their scores. So with this said, when you place your search orders next week and the following weeks, we wanted to remind you that when you use PSAT, we adjust your score bands appropriately, and we encourage you to search beyond simply the PSAT. Include SAT, AP, and students without an assessment. As we've shared changes in the data flow with you. We want you to help you find the most new students you can that are going to help you meet your goals. And adjusting your search parameters beyond just the PSAT is going to be critical.
We also want to stress the importance of understanding when your searches may be over-filtered, effectively removing students from your orders that you would otherwise be intending to contact. This chart can be found in the search site in the support section under About the Data. You can find it by clicking on the link for Student Data by Exam. We collect different information from students on each assessment. Items collected on the student data questionnaire are marked with a check. And when students opt in online, the data collection picture changes, which we'll cover on the next slide. Now, these items correlate to the filters available within search. If, for example, you're searching with a PSAT data source on an order, and you use filters that fall outside the purple box, you may be excluding test takers who never saw or responded to a particular question. Other considerations to help you avoid overfiltering. As Mark mentioned earlier, searching by major may be less helpful among younger cohorts whose career aspirations are evolving. If you do, always include no response here, and on any other filter you select where no response is an option. All students have either a verified email address or mailing address, and most have both. Use OR logic in the email and postal preferences section to ensure you're talking to every student who needs to hear your message in at least one channel. And finally, if you search only with score bands, you'll be excluding students who have opted in without an assessment. There are more than 500,000 of these students in the database, so be sure to have a plan for how you'll work with this population. When students opt into search online, there's a spectrum of data points that could become part of their search record. You'll find every student somewhere between basic data collected during account creation, which you can see on the left side of these set of arrows, and the full student data questionnaire to the right. Now, the opportunity to share items in the third arrow, major interest, GPA, and race and ethnicity, those are presented to students immediately following account creation. And many students will populate answers to these questions. Questions on the far right are deeper into the opt-in process and associated with specific online actions like SAT registration. So what does this mean for search? Think about how these data points translate to search filters and use this continuum to rank those filters from most to least impactful on market saturation. So for example, filtering by self-reported GPA, which is a question presented to many students who opt in online, will identify more students who meet your criteria than filtering by intended college size, for example, in college plans and preferences. That's a question that fewer students respond to. Across all students available in the database today, 14% don't yet have an assessment, 27% have not yet shared a major interest, 89% have not indicated any preference about their college's religious affiliation, and 13% have not yet reported their GPA. So be cautious about omitting these students from your searches, as many of them are likely strong candidates for your information or for your institution as a result of the information that we collect from students and that you select from your filters. We discussed the importance of having a plan for students in the database without an assessment. You'll use the College Board exams filter in search to find them. In the first yellow box on this screenshot of the College Board exams filter, you'll see the option to include all opt-in students, which is the default. This will include all students who have opted into search, both those who have tested and those who have not. This is a helpful filter to find all available students who meet your other selected criteria. If you select the third option, to include only students that have not taken a College Board exam, you'll only get those students. You might use this selection to find additional students that your score band orders won't capture. If you search with score bands in the second yellow box, you will only get students with scores in the ranges you select. So to be clear, this will be leaving students out who have opted in, want to hear from colleges, but have not yet taken an assessment. Here, it's important to always select your exam, add your minimum and maximum scores, add another row, and select another exam. As Mark mentioned earlier, we recommend that you include all three exam sources, PSAT, SAT, and AP, as a standard rule of practice on any order, using the OR search logic between the assessments. Again, we're here to help you think through this and develop your plan, including any segmentation that you might want to do here.
So when we look at all institutions who use College Board Search, still only about a third of institutions are searching for sophomores. That means 2/3 of you are waiting until these students hit their junior year to begin recruiting them. We often hear schools tell us that they don't have a sophomore comm plan, which is what prevents them from searching for sophomores. Now, Carolyn and I both came from institutions that had developed robust sophomore search strategies over time. And we would say that when it comes to sophomore search communication, perfection is the enemy of progress. Don't think that you have to have a perfectly built comm flow for sophomores. The more important part is that students hear from you and know that you're interested in recruiting them. Keep in mind, you'll be talking with students who are hearing from fewer institutions, which will likely help you get higher response rates. So as you've heard us mention, we anticipate that more sophomores will take the January PSAT. And of course, there's the spring PSAT 10 testing window as well, where it's likely additional sophomores will do in-school testing and will be added to the database a few months down the road. So finally, keep in mind that students who don't answer the opt-in question when they take an exam can opt in at a later point. And as soon as they opt into, they take the opt-in step, we're adding them to the database. So I'll just reiterate that searching frequently is going to be essential to find those students.
Any discussion of search tactics would really be incomplete if we did not mention two important data enhancement tools. Interest in My College, or IMC, flags students in search who are interested in you. And Segment Analysis Service gives you an unparalleled insight into the best places for you to recruit and open new markets. The insight you collect from each tool is really essential to taking your search efforts from good to great. IMC leverages Big Future to identify students in search who have added your institution to their college list. Student participation in IMC is up year over year for each cohort. Take a look at the chart on the bottom left of this slide. For each cohort, the bar on the left represents IMC participation on November 1st, 2019, and the bar just to the right of that bar shows IMC participation today. While the largest gains have been in the junior and sophomore cohorts, Big Future list building is an activity that begins in earnest in the spring of junior year and continues through senior year. Adding IMC to your search strategy will today give you additional tools for your senior search efforts, but over the course of the 12 months of access with an IMC subscription, it'll help you find interested students in the class of 2022 and beyond. This is a great way to find highly interested students in a year when you're thinking about search differently. Segment Analysis Service uses educationally relevant geodemography to help you better understand your student population and license search names more strategically. Talk to us about adding either or both of these tools to your search tool belt. We'd love to share them with you.
So here are a few simple, critical takeaways that we hope you will implement in your search plans going forward. First, we've said it before, but search has changed and your approach needs to change with it. Most importantly, searching for students a couple of times a year puts you at a major disadvantage because the strongest search users are searching monthly, which means they're constantly talking with students when they're new to the search database and when they're most receptive to hearing from colleges. Second, if you use the same orders you used last year in your PSAT searches, you'll find fewer students because the new reality is that students enter the database without scores in some cases, or in this pandemic year, students may not have taken as many assessments as they normally would have. Oftentimes, students have a PSAT, SAT, and an AP test. So when you place your orders next week, you may want to search for your PSAT test takers first, followed by SAT test takers, then AP, and then possibly for students without an assessment. This approach will help ensure you aren't missing students who will help you meet your enrollment goals. Of course, we understand you're all very busy and we want to be of help to you. So if you're ready to change your search practices, let us help you strategize how.
One of the ways College Board has been committed to staying in touch with higher education through the pandemic has been through a webinar series. We have 3 more webinars scheduled this month that we invite you to join. You can register via cb.org/HE-COVID-19. The first is December SAT updates for higher ed, which is on December 14th. This will be the fourth webinar in a series about the ongoing impact of COVID-19 on the delivery of the SAT suite of assessments this fall. This webinar will include updates on how many students have been able to take the SAT this fall, and we'll look ahead to registration patterns for upcoming administrations. The following day, on December 15th, we'll host Law, Policy, and Practice, What Everyone Needs to Know About Race and Admissions. This will be an interactive webinar offering practical background on the benefits of diversity, legal principles, and court decisions, as well as exploring concrete examples to help staff confidently recruit and admit a diverse class. Finally, on Thursday, December 17th, we'll offer new graduate projections with WICHE, a planner's discussion of enrollment and admission trends. This session will bring together College Board and the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, known as WICHE, for an in-depth discussion stemming from high school graduate projections from the 10th edition of Knocking at the College Door. This is a great opportunity to learn about the latest WICHE data looking forward 15 years and can help you grapple with the tightening high school graduate supply that so many of you are already experiencing. Again, you can register for any of these webinars by visiting cb.org/HECOVID-19, and we'll also include direct links to register for any of these sessions in our follow-up email. You can also view on-demand recordings of our past search webinars on the Higher Ed COVID site. So we hope you'll check that out.
And finally, one final reminder is that we're here to help. Carolyn and I have cleared our calendars next week on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to meet with you one-on-one and offer support in building your PSAT plan. Many of you also work directly with one of our other College Board colleagues who will also be on hand to schedule time with you in support of you in this work. We'll include a link to schedule a consultation with a College Board search expert in the follow-up email after this webinar.
So that brings us to some time where we have some opportunity for you guys to ask some questions through the chat or through the Q&A. If you'd like to send a few of those our way, we would be happy to answer the questions that we can.
Mark, it looks like we're getting a question about the students who never responded one way or the other to the opt-in question from PSAT. The idea is, should we just wait to get those students? What would you recommend?
Oh, great. That's a great question. I appreciate someone asking it. So, you know, the reality is that the bulk of the names are going to go in on Monday. So our recommendation would not be to wait. You know, go out and talk to the students who meet your criteria right away. Yes, we do expect that there will be more students opting in over time, but we don't know exactly what that will look like. It could be a few thousand students. It could be tens of thousands of students. But ideally, the way most campuses approach this is to, you know, try to be first in the mailbox, especially given that we're releasing names earlier this year. We're going to be bumping up against the holidays here soon. Our advice would be to get your communications out quickly and then revisit the database probably in early January when you come back from the holiday break. That will give you a chance then to go in and what we oftentimes refer to as kind of sweep up those names that have opted in since the data load. That would be our advice. But of course, you know, we can talk in more detail with you one-on-one about your approach. Not seeing any other questions come in. We've been answering a few along the way. We certainly do have a few questions for you guys that we would like to ask through our polling. Carolyn, do you want to put those out there?
Yeah, I just launched a poll. We really value your feedback on these webinars. And for those of you who have joined us for search webinars throughout the year, we really appreciate your participation and certainly are always interested in making these better and more helpful for all of you. So I've launched this poll. We would appreciate it if you shared some feedback with us. And then Mark and I will remain here to answer any other questions that might come our way.
So we did just get a question, Carolyn, that I'll pitch to you. When placing orders, there's an option to receive names monthly or as the data loads by the set schedule of releases. What do you recommend for the quickest engagement with new students?
Yeah, that's a really good question. it's I think depending on your goals and what you're trying to do, and maybe even the time of year. So in the example that we shared from Stample College, we recommended using as the data loads. And that's partially because during the first part of 2021, we have a number of data loads that are associated with our data load calendar. So setting up a standing order through that point in the year is going to get you, in some cases, multiple deliveries of names in a given month. If you're setting up something like an interest in my college order, in that case, those names are going to be flowing in weekly. Always for that data point will always be coming in via indexing about student interest. So a monthly order there makes a lot of sense. If you look to another part in the year where maybe there aren't as many data loads scheduled, then monthly can get you the most frequent delivery. So I think, just feel free to reach out to us or to your College Board point person, and we can help you think through that. But I think it's a really good question. We know standing orders can really be helpful to so many of you in automating some of this work behind the scenes.
Great. Well, unless we see any other questions coming in, I think we can go ahead and begin to wrap this up. We certainly appreciate your time spending it with us. We know it's a very busy time of year. Many of you are deep in the application reading process, so we really do appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you today.
And Mark, one more quick question here before we sign off, asking for a guesstimate about number of new test takers available in March. We don't have a prediction on that yet. Actually, the ordering window for that exam is not yet closed. So we don't have a projection, but as soon as we do have a sense of what the demand for that January exam is going to look like, we'll be able to share information with our search users. So thanks for that ask. All right. Well, with that, we'll close down our webinar. We appreciate you taking the time to answer our poll questions, for your time today. We are available next week, of course, as things come up or questions come up, and we would love to help you strategize. So enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy your weekends, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining.